I cleaned out 4 closed houses for a property preservation crew, paid per job, and my plan that morning was to dump trash, pull moldy carpet, photograph the before, then meet my buddy for lunch. I wore gloves, carried contractor bags, and had a lockbox code from the bank on a sticky note. The place looked normal from the street, dead lawn, flyers on the door, that sad, empty house vibe. Inside, it was too clean, no dust on the counters, no Cool Whips, just this chemical lemon smell like someone tried to erase the air. I stood there with my boots on that shiny tile, listening to the house settle, and I remember thinking, great, somebody already flipped through it, no haul for me. That's how my brain works on jobs. Everything is minutes and dumpster weight. I pulled my phone out, checked the work order again, made sure the address matched, then shoved it back in my pocket because I didn't want to think about it. I hate clean foreclosures. Clean means somebody was here recently and didn't want to leave trace. I started in the kitchen, ripping open cabinets, checking for spoiled food, tossing junk mail. The drawers squealed like they hadn't been opened in months, but the handles were wiped down, no greasy fingerprints, no dust lines. I dumped a stack of foreclosure notices into a bag, found a couple of plastic kids' cups, a single spoon, nothing else. The fridge was empty but plugged in, humming, cold. Somebody paid that bill, or somebody wanted the light on when they opened it. That lemon smell was everywhere. It didn't just sit in the air, it clung to my nose like I'd rubbed cleaner right on my face. I kept clearing my throat, pissed off at my own body for reacting like a baby. In the pantry, behind a stack of canned beans, I found a little door I didn't remember seeing on the walkthrough photos. Not a closet, smaller. Someone had painted the hinges the same color as the wall. It wasn't even a good job. Brush strokes thick around the screws, like they rushed and didn't care if anyone noticed, because who the hell kneels in a pantry and checks the wall like that? I crouched, pulled, and it stuck like it was glued. I yanked harder, and it gave it a wet pop. The smell hit me so fast my eyes watered. Sweet rot, like meat left in a hot car. Not sewer, not mold. That animal sugar stink that makes your stomach try to climb out of your throat. I should have shut it and walked out right then. I didn't. I leaned in like a dumbass because my job is literally to open things people don't want opened, and because I told myself it was a dead raccoon or old food or some hoarder crap. I clicked my headlamp on and saw a crawl space. Not tall enough to stand. It dropped down maybe 3 feet, then ran under the house. The floor was lined with plastic sheeting like a cheap kill room in a movie, except it wasn't a movie. The plastic was wrinkled and taped at the seams, corners folded like somebody had done it 100 times, and there were muddy knee prints in one spot that weren't mine. There were zip ties in a bucket. There were rolls of duct tape. There were thick trash bags stacked like sandbags. A box of nitrile gloves. A couple of bottles of that same lemon cleaner. A mop head sealed in a bag like it was evidence. All of it arranged, not tossed. Like somebody kept this spot ready. My chest started doing that tight thing, like I jogged upstairs, even though I'd been crouching. I whispered nope to myself and still crawled in because I wanted to be sure, because my brain hates a maybe. My knees crinkled the plastic. It sounded loud as hell in that tight space. In the corner, there was a cooler. I opened it because I'm an idiot and because my brain couldn't accept it without proof. Inside were dozens of tiny clear baggies, each with something hard and off-white. Teeth, baby teeth, adult teeth, some still bloody at the root. The way they'd been cleaned, but not cleaned all the way, brown at the bottoms, little strands stuck like wet hair. I dropped the lid and gagged so hard I almost threw up on the plastic. My eyes burned, my mouth filled with spit. I slapped a hand over my lips like that would keep my guts from leaving my body. I scooted backward, heel slipping on the plastic, and my glove hit something that clicked. A handful of loose zip ties spilled out of the bucket. They clattered against each other like cheap jewelry. I froze, listening because that sound felt like it would carry through the whole damn house. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. No message. Then it buzzed again. A text this time, a photo of my van parked out front, taken from across the street. Not from the sidewalk, from a low angle like someone crouched behind a car or a bush. You could see my company magnet on the door, my license plate, the reflection of the house in my windshield. My hands went cold, not metaphor cold, like the blood left my fingers and the gloves felt too big. I kept staring at the photo because my brain refused to pick a move. Call 911. Call my boss. Run. I didn't do any of it. I didn't call anyone. I didn't take more pictures. I just backed out of that crawl space like it could grab my ankles. I banged my shoulder on the pantry frame, swore, almost dropped my phone. I grabbed my bags, my gloves, everything, and moved fast to the front door. My head was yelling, leave the tools, leave the bags, just leave, but I couldn't stand the idea of my shit being in there if I had to come back with cops. Dumb logic in a panic. The deadbolt was locked. I hadn't locked it. I stared at it, then tried to turn it anyway like maybe it would magically change its mind. It didn't. I tried the knob and it didn't turn. My key ring felt useless in my pocket. This wasn't my house. No key. Only the lockbox code that suddenly felt like a joke. I heard footsteps above me, slow, deliberate, like someone walking in socks on hardwood. This wasn't my crew. This wasn't a neighbor. The house had been empty. I'd been alone for 40 minutes. I knew every sound I'd made, every cabinet slam, every bag crinkle. Nobody could have slipped past me without me seeing them, unless they were already in there. My brain flashed stupid images, squatter, someone protecting their stash, some meth head. Then the cooler and the teeth slammed back into my head, and it wasn't stupid anymore. It was worse. I ran to the back door. Same thing. Locked. I hit it with my shoulder once, twice, felt the frame flex, but the lock held. Then the sound changed. Something heavy dragged across the upstairs floor. Furniture? A body? I don't know. I just know it made my skin crawl. The drag stopped right above the staircase. Then there was a pause like whoever was stood there listening to me breathe. My phone buzzed again. Another text. No words. Just the same photo, zoomed in on my driver's seat through the windshield. Like a warning. I see your way out. I didn't think. I just moved. I grabbed a cheap pry bar from my tool bag, ran to the living room window, and smashed it with my elbow because the pry bar felt too slow. Glass bit through my jacket. Pain flared up my arm. I climbed out, boots crunching shards, and tore my jacket on the sill. I landed hard in the yard, stumbled, caught myself, then sprinted to my van like I owed it money. Behind me, I heard the front door unlock. Not a slam, not a kick, a calm click, then the hinge creak, like they waited until I committed to running, like they wanted to watch me scramble. I got in, hands shaking so bad I dropped my keys between the seats. I fished them out, jammed them in the ignition, and the engine stalled on the first crank like it wanted to betray me. I slammed the wheel, screamed, and got it started on the second try. My tires spit dirt. I didn't even close my door all the way at first. I had to shove it with my elbow while the van rolled. As I peeled away, I saw someone step into the upstairs window, just a silhouette. They didn't wave. They just stood there watching like I was a commercial they'd already seen. No face, no phone light, just a shape framed in that too-clean room, still as a cutout. I drove 2 streets over before I realized I was crying like full-on, ugly, snotty crying because my body finally caught up to what my brain had been trying to dodge. I pulled into a random parking lot and threw up into an empty contractor bag. Lemon smell came up with it, like it had soaked into me. My buddy texted me twice, then called because I'd missed lunch and I'm usually the one pestering him. I let it ring out. I couldn't get my voice to work. I sat there wiping my mouth with my sleeve, staring at my cut arm, thinking about those teeth in baggies like somebody's little trophies, thinking about the plastic under the house, thinking about how the locks turned without me. When I finally drove home, I took side roads, kept checking my mirrors, half expecting my own van photo to show up again from some other angle closer. I scrubbed my hands until they burned, even though I'd worn gloves. I still felt that cooler lid under my palm, that soft give before it snapped shut. The bank asked for my job photos. I told them the lockbox code didn't work and I couldn't get in. I lied through my teeth. I still smell that lemon cleaner sometimes, and my stomach flips because I know exactly what it was for. I was on call for a locksmith company, chasing overtime, and my plan was simple. Drive to a post-break-in rekey, swap the cylinder, get a signature, then grab gas station coffee and go home. I had my drill, a bag of Schlage cores, and the work order on my phone with a unit number and a buzzer code. I remember checking the unit twice at a red light because it had a letter on it, and those always turn into bullshit in big buildings. My van smelled like metal shavings and old takeout. My hands smelled like WD-40, and I was running on that stupid overtime brain where you stop questioning anything as long as the job closes out clean. The lobby smelled like bleach and wet carpet. The buzzer worked on the first press, which already felt wrong. People who've been broken into don't buzz you in like it's pizza. I rode up, knocked, and the door opened a crack before I even touched it. Chain still on. A man I'd never met stared through the gap and said I was late. No thanks, no fear. Just irritation. I should have walked. I didn't. I slid my kid inside, first like it could take a hit for me, show my little company badge through the gap, and he unhooked the chain slow, eyes stuck on my hands. He stepped back and let me in like he'd been waiting for a delivery, not a locksmith after a break-in. The apartment looked lived in, but paused. No te veo, no free noise. A purse on the counter with the zipper open like someone dropped it mid-motion. There were shoes by the door, but they didn't look kicked off. They looked placed. The air felt stale, like the windows had stayed shut for days. He didn't offer a name, didn't point at damage, didn't show me a police report like people sometimes do. He just hovered behind me while I pulled the knob. Every time I shifted, he shifted with me. He kept asking if I had to take the old core with me. I told him yes. Company policy. Old hardware comes back, especially if it's been forced. He swore under his breath, tight and mean, and his hand stayed in his hoodie pocket the whole time, knuckles pressing the fabric like he was holding something in there. I kept telling myself he was just stressed. My gut didn't buy it. I worked fast to get out. Screws out. Trim off. Cylinder exposed. When I popped the cylinder, it wasn't a standard keyway. It was chewed up like somebody forced it with tools, recent, messy little curls of metal still caught in it. I turned to ask what happened, and he was too close, breath hot. That flat looked like I'd become a problem. No panique, no embarrassment. Just that blank irritation people get when you notice something they wanted you to ignore. I pocketed the old core on instinct. That's when he moved. He shoved me toward the hallway hard. I hit the wall, my shoulder thudded drywall. My drill clanged to the floor and skipped away from me. He grabbed my wrist and tried to drag me into the bedroom like he'd rehearsed a move. Not a sloppy grab. Wrist pull, pivot like he'd done it before and knew where he wanted my body to go. I kicked back, caught his shin, and he hissed like a pissed-off cat. His grip tightened, and I felt tendons burn in my forearm. I twisted my arm the way you do when you're trying to peel a hand off you. Rotate toward the thumb, rip back, and it slipped. I bolted for the front door. The deadbolt was already thrown from the inside. Not mine. I yanked at it and felt the metal grind and stopped dead. Something jammed it. I leaned in and saw brass. A key snapped off in the cylinder, broken stub buried deep in the slot. I just stared at it for half a second because my brain didn't want to accept what that meant. That wasn't a stuck lock. That was a lock turned into a cage. He didn't scream. He didn't chase. He just walked up behind me and said, real calm, "You opened the wrong one." Like that made it an oops instead of a fucking attack. Like I'd apologize and follow him down the hall. I smelled old coffee on his breath and something sour like sweat that's been sitting in fabric for days. I felt him right behind my shoulder, and I knew if he got both hands on me again, I was done. I swung my tool bag into his face and heard teeth click. It wasn't heroic. It was ugly and heavy and desperate. The bag bounced off bone, and he stumbled back with a wet grunt like he'd swallowed wrong. I didn't look for my drill. I didn't even look for my phone. I ran to the fire escape window, shoved it up, and scraped my forearms raw on the frame. The window fought like it hadn't been opened in years. I jammed my fingers under the sash, tore a nail, and forced it up anyway because the door wasn't a door anymore. The drop was one story to an awning. I jumped anyway, landed wrong, and saw white sparks in my vision. My ankle folded and pain shot up my leg, so sharp it made my stomach flip. I rolled off the awning onto wet gravel, ripped my palm open, and crawled up because my leg didn't want to hold me. I heard the window move above me again, slow and careful, not the frantic sound of someone chasing. More like he was leaning out to watch. By the time I limped to my van and called 911, I was shaking so hard my thumb kept missing the screen. I tried to talk like a normal person and it came out chopped and stupid. Address, floor, unit, locksmith attacked. While I waited, I called dispatch too, because my whole job lives in that app, and it went straight to voicemail like the world decided to stay quiet. When the cops showed, I pointed up at the window, showed them my scraped arms, showed them my ankle swelling through my sock, and still got that sideways look like I'd started something and wanted backup for the story. We went back up. The hallway was quiet. The door was shut. Nobody answered. No drill on the floor. No guy with a busted mouth. No noise inside. Just a closed door and a cheap hallway light buzzing. Then I want to pull up the work order to prove I wasn't just some creep trying doors. It wasn't there. Not completed. Not canceled. Gone. Like it never existed. I refreshed the app, logged out, logged back in, searched the address. Nothing. Even the message thread with dispatch didn't have the job in it anymore. It was like somebody reached into my phone and erased that call while I was outside, trying not to puke. One cop's face changed, not into concern, into that bored suspicion like I just screwed up a lie. The building manager showed up in sweatpants and treated me like I was the scam. He said the unit I named was vacant. He said nobody should have been inside it. He said the cameras weren't working right. Like that explained everything. He didn't ask if I was okay. He asked why I damaged property with the awning and why I was forcing doors. The cops leaned into that because it was easier. They asked why I didn't have a signed work order. They asked if I had the tenant's name. They asked if I'd been drinking. I wanted to punch something. I wanted to drag them by the collar into that apartment and make them smell the stale air and see that purse sitting open like a paused life. But the door stayed shut and they stayed lazy about it. I went home limping, adrenaline turning into this thick nausea that made everything feel unreal. My supervisor finally called, and his first word weren't, "Are you alive?" They were, "Why isn't the job closed?" I told him what happened, and he went quiet, then started asking questions that sounded like he was building a way to blame me. Did I enter the correct unit? Did I confirm the tenant? Did I take photos? Do I have proof the drill was stolen? Then he said if the drill was gone, I needed a case number or the company couldn't cover it. Like I'd just misplaced a wrench. I got home, dumped my keys on the counter, and that's when I saw it. A fresh key on my own, keyring that wasn't mine, tagged with a unit number in the same building. Like a receipt. Clean brass, little plastic tag like something from a lockbox. I know every key on my ring. I don't carry random cuts. This one hadn't been there when I left the shop. I sat down hard and turned it over and over until my thumb hurt, trying to rebuild the night and find the moment it could have happened. Did he slip it on me when he grabbed my wrist? Did it snag when I swung the bag? Did I pick it up by mistake near the door? None of it fit. It felt planted, like a message. I can put things on you and you won't notice until you think you're safe. I called the cops back and told them about the key, and their tone changed again. Not into urgency, into annoyance. They said, "Bring it in." I did. They bagged it like it was nothing and said someone might follow up. Nobody did. The manager wouldn't return calls after that. And when I went back the next day with my supervisor to verify the unit, the manager swore we were never there the night before and threatened to call police on us for trespassing. I stood in that lobby, smelling bleach and wet carpet, and felt my stomach drop all over again, like I'd stepped into a place that deletes you the second you leave it. The cops treated me like I was lying. The building manager treated me like I was a scam. And I still don't know if the real tenant was in there hiding or already gone when I showed up with my stupid fucking kid. I worked night shift as a pharmacy tech, scraping rent together, and my plan that week was to count pills, fill refills, keep my head down, then crash for 6 hours before doing it again. I had a new energy drink habit, a stack of labels, and a manager who watched the cameras like it was porn. Nights were printer noise, fluorescent buzz, and customers who looked like they'd been dragged to the counter by a rope tied around their problems. The pharmacist did what he could, but he always looked like he was holding 10 different disasters in his mouth and trying not to choke. My manager didn't do disasters. He did control. He did surveillance. He lived for catching someone doing something he could punish. The first weird thing was small, a bottle I swear I filled showing up in the will call bin with a different count. Not one pill off. More. Enough that I dumped it onto the tray and counted slow, then counted again, then again. My initials sat on the label like a signature on a lie. The computer history said filled, verified, staged. Clean. No edits. No note. I fixed it, reprinted the label, logged a recount like I was supposed to, and told myself I'd grabbed the wrong vial or someone moved it while I was stuck at the register. Then a customer called furious because their meds felt wrong. Same med, same lot, but they said it made their mouth numb and their heart race. They didn't sound dramatic. They sounded scared, like they were trying not to accuse us while their body did something it shouldn't. I told them to stop taking it and come in, and when I hung up, I stared at my hands like they were dirty. I started counting twice, then 3 times. I checked imprints. I checked lot numbers. I started writing little notes to myself on scrap paper, times and bottle sizes, and who was standing where, like I was building my own case file, because nobody else would. My manager noticed the slowdown right away. He hovered, tapped the counter, made those little comments like I was slow on purpose. He'd angle his body so the camera above the bench could see him supervising, like he was building a case out of footage. When I tried to tell the pharmacist about the call, my manager cut in first, smiling, saying I'd been stressed and in my head. The pharmacist just nodded, like he didn't have the energy to fight a manager and a line of customers at the same time. Then I found one of our stock bottles tucked behind the sharps bin in the back room. Cap loose, seal broken. Nobody stores anything there. The back room was a cramped cave of cardboard and dust, and that sharps bin was bolted to the wall like a threat. I cracked the bottle open and got hit with a bitter chemical bite that didn't belong. The pills were the right shape, right stamp, but the smell was wrong like solvent. My stomach tightened so hard I had to lean on the shelf. I capped it, uncapped it again, hoping I imagined it. I didn't. I took it to my manager. He shrugged, told me to stop being paranoid, told me I was spiraling. He said it loud enough for the pharmacist to hear. That's how you kill someone's credibility fast. I felt my face burn and my hands shake, and I wanted to punch him. The pharmacist asked to see it, and my manager snapped the cap on tight before he handed it over, like he didn't want anyone breathing near the open bottle. The pharmacist sniffed it and his eyes flicked up for half a second, but he didn't say anything out loud. He just set it down and went back to work, and I could tell he didn't want to be involved. That night, the cameras glitched. The timestamp skipped 20 minutes. The system rebooted itself. My manager acted annoyed, like technology was the villain, but he didn't write it up, didn't call anyone, didn't even look surprised. Then he told me to reprint a bunch of labels that had misaligned. He handed me the stack, already peeled, already touched. We don't do that. Peeled labels pick up lint and stick to gloves, but his were clean and flat like he'd prepped them. I watched his fingers. They were clean. Too clean. No ink smudge, no nicotine stain, no powder, nothing. Like he washed up for surgery. I tried to focus on the printer and not on the missing 20 minutes. But the room felt wrong. Every bottle cap sounded louder than it should. Every time the office door clicked, I flinched. The pharmacist stepped away to take a call, and my manager drifted closer and leaned over the bench, blocking the camera angle with his shoulder, acting casual. He didn't say anything. He didn't have to. The message was just his body in my space and the cameras looking at his back instead of my hands. I stayed after close and checked the trash because paranoia makes you do gross things. Under coffee cups, torn boxes, and label backing, I found empty gelatin capsules and a little baggie with pale powder stuck to the seam. Not Coke, not sugar, something finer. It clung like static. I brushed it with my glove and a little puff rose. My stupid brain did the worst possible thing. I touched my lip without thinking. My tongue hit that spot and went numb, instant like dental gel. My chest started hammering. My hand shook harder. I rinsed at the sink until my gums burned, but the numbness stayed and the pounding in my chest didn't feel like panic anymore. It felt chemical. That's when the fear turned into something else. Not just this is weird, but this is inside my body now. I kept hearing that customer's words, mouth numb, heart race. And I started wondering if I'd already contaminated something, if I was the reason people felt wrong, if I'd been the problem all along and just hadn't noticed. I wiped down surfaces. I recounted will call bottles. I locked the NARC cabinet twice, even though it was already locked. I made my hands shake less by gripping the counter until my knuckles hurt. I went to lock up and saw my manager in the dark front aisle, not where he should have been, holding a bottle under the security light like he was reading scripture. He snapped the cap on when he noticed me. His smile didn't reach his eyes. He said I looked tired. He said I should go home. I drove home and sat in my car for 10 minutes because I didn't trust my own door. My heart wouldn't slow down. My mouth stayed numb. I never felt that before, not even with too much caffeine. I tried to sleep and couldn't, so I paced my apartment and kept washing my hands like I could scrub off the feeling. By morning, my tongue still felt thick, and that scared me more than any creepy thought. 2 days later, a cop showed up at the pharmacy with a report. Someone had been hospitalized after taking meds filled on my shift. The cop didn't yell. He didn't have to. He asked for the pharmacist, asked for the prescription number, asked about our process, asked who touched the bottle. My manager answered half the questions for him, all calm and helpful, like he was hosting. Then the cop asked who filled it. My manager pointed at me like it was automatic, like he'd been waiting. The pharmacist didn't defend me. He just looked tired and scared, like he could already see his license on the line. The cop asked for my ID, my phone number, my address, and if I'd ever had substance issues. That question landed like a punch. My manager stood there the whole time, arms crossed, watching me sweat, and I could feel him enjoying how small I looked in that moment. I didn't get arrested. I got suspended pending investigation, which is just a softer way to say you're fucked. My manager walked me to the office, slid a form across the desk, and told me not to contact anyone involved until HR called. He added that I'd be required to take a drug test, said it like it was routine, like he wasn't enjoying how that sounded. He took my badge like it was evidence and told me to empty my locker while he watched. I walked out past customers like I might grab a bottle and run. I went home, tore apart my backpack, and found a tiny slit in the lining I hadn't noticed. Inside was a folded label with my name on it and a single capsule filled with that same pale powder like a souvenir. It wasn't something that could have fallen in by accident. The capsule was sealed clean, no lint stuck to it, no smudge, like it had been loaded with tweezers. I held it up to my kitchen light, and the powder shifted slow, too fine, clinging to the plastic like flour. My mouth went numb just looking at it, like my body remembered. I sealed it in a zip bag and shoved it in a drawer like a coward. I sat on my floor and stared at it until my hands stopped shaking and then started again. I thought about taking it to the police, but all I could picture was my manager already setting the story, already calling me paranoid in front of witnesses, already making sure I sounded like the kind of person no one believes. HR called the next day and asked if I'd been stressed, if I'd been sleeping, if I'd been taking anything. They talked like they were already done with me. My manager texted once, telling me to return my badge and shirt. No, how are you? No, this is crazy. Just instructions. I still don't know how many bottles he touched before he decided I'd be the fall guy. I just know he watched me unravel in real time, and he looked bored while he did it.